Welcome to yet another episode of All Things AI here on Joburg Pulse Radio. They call me Bra Willy Seyama. I'm the founder of Initiate, a marketing productivity agency that started more than 15 years ago as a digital communication agency. We have since morphed in the last 22 months thanks to the birth of ChatGPT, which large language model was introduced to the world on the 30th of November in 2022. I'm also a co-founder of a financial services group called Voice, spelled VOYSE. Still a baby, but we've got big things that we want to achieve under the flag of the Voice Financial Services Group, but less about that. Today, I am flying solo. The co-pilot for this particular slot on All Things AI, TK, is out of town taking some time off. And I'm going to, as a result, be the only one in the driver's seat. The overarching title of this particular episode is about generative AI still being a nascent technology, under which there are two topics. And the first topic is on the value of AI skills versus the value of domain skills. And I will explain what I mean by it. The second topic is specifically on prompt engineering, whether we still need this as a skill, given that generative AI models will become smarter with time. I will also get into it when I discuss this particular subtopic. Let me go back to the first one. There are currently two schools of thoughts, both of which are backed by research to some extent. The one school of thought is that companies would rather employ people with generative AI skills and forgo the prospect of people who have domain skills but don't have generative AI skills. What is a domain skill? A domain skill is the kind of skill that you acquire through the work that you do, be it in marketing, be it in strategy, be it in content marketing, be it in advertising, and you can keep going within the value chain of marketing and communications. So we're talking that kind of domain skill. While the generative AI skill speaks to exactly that. You have that skill that has to do with generating multimodal content in the way of text, images, videos, and graphics, but you may not necessarily yet anyway have a domain skill. So that two schools of thought. The one school says companies are more comfortable employing people who have a generative AI skill ahead of domain skill. The other school of thought is that companies would prefer people who have a domain skill and helping those people acquire a generative AI skill as an overlay. Okay. Interestingly, the school to do with people who have generative AI skill but don't necessarily have a domain skill, this is one of the findings from the Microsoft and LinkedIn report, which they call Work Index. It was released in April of this year. It's a research report that is filled with great insights, and I encourage you as the listener of Joburg Pulse Radio to check it out. Why is this topic of interest to me? It's because I have a view which I want to share with you. And the view in this case is that you are better off starting with a domain skill and overlaying on your skill set the generative AI skill. Why do I say so? It is my view, based on my experience, based on a sample base of one, being myself, that if you have a domain skill and you overlay the generative AI skill, your value in terms of productivity is higher than the case where you have only the generative AI skill but not a particular domain skill. Let me give you an analogy. If you are a writer who has acquired this domain skill, and I'm using this particular skill because it's hard to be a writer. Ask me, I do write, and I know, how much persistence it takes to become a writer. That's why we don't have everyone being an author in this world, anywhere in the world. But if you are a writer and you're willing to learn generative AI skills, which, by the way, are much easier to acquire than would be the skills to do with writing, you become much more valuable. Just because you have generative AI skills doesn't automatically translate to you then becoming a better writer. Because thing is, as things stand now, large language models still need a human in the loop. They haven't gotten to a stage where they are able to figure out on a prompt what exactly you're looking for. So they still need, in inverted commas, hand-holding. And if you don't have the domain skill, it's difficult to hand-hold any of the existing large language models out there at the moment. So the people who then come with a domain skill and are willing to acquire the generative AI skill, they are most likely going to increase their productivity much more than if you had the generative AI skill and you don't have the domain skill. So that's my position on this topic of generative AI skills versus domain skills. You can think of domain skills in broader terms, because a skill is based on acquisition, based on the work that you do, because you acquire skills over time based on practice. It takes a lot more time depending on, the type of skill that you are building. Some skills are easier to build, others are much harder to build, and especially the more technical you go. As a result, if you don't have an engineering, let's say a quantity surveying skill, just because you have a generative AI skill doesn't mean that, that will bridge the gap between you not having the quantity surveying skill and then acquiring it over time, because some things you will know and other things you won't. And as a result, then, based on what I said about the fact that these large language models still need a human in the loop, you will not be able to guide it because you don't know what you don't know based on the domain that you are applying the generative AI skills. So that is why I'm saying that you do need the domain skill and then overlay the generative AI skill. Okay, let's go on to the next topic. The next topic is on whether prompt engineering as a skill will lose its value as large language models become smarter. What is prompt engineering? Prompt engineering is a type of skill that gets acquired, which can be used productively to be able to get large language models to perform specific tasks, based on your prompting them. Why has this become a topical issue? It's become a topical issue because it is predicted that over time, the more we get to make these large language models become smarter, the more they will get to know what tasks to perform, what levels to perform those tasks at, to an extent that they will become autonomous, which is where we are heading along the lines of the so-called artificial general intelligence. Okay, there is a merit insofar as these machines becoming smarter. The only challenge is that at the moment, it is anybody's guess how long it's going to take to get there, where you may end up not needing to prompt these machines at all because they will autonomously perform tasks without being prompted by a human. And the view in this case is they will know enough about us. Think of your own mobile phone, which is where edge computing comes in. Don't worry about the technical terms I'm using here. We get into a stage where your own mobile, your smartphone, will enable you to run large language models on your smartphone without them being connected to the cloud. And the view is that with your smartphone, because it's always by you, it will learn certain things, your behaviors, your usage behaviors. Things like, what do you use it for? How do you use it? When do you use it? Why do you use it? And so on and so on. And because it will learn this behavior about you as its user, it'll get to a stage where when you have a particular app, large language model app on it, that app can start executing some tasks without you telling it, because it knows you wake up at this time, you tend to have lunch at this or that time, you tend to go to the gym at this or that time. What do you do during the day when you are in the office, the meetings that you hold? Because some of the apps like Otter, for example, meeting recording devices. So when all these generative AI tools work together in an agentic kind of setup, they will know when you go to the meeting, you don't have to ask it. They will know because they look at your calendar. When are you going to that meeting? They will know what to do with the minutes of the meeting. They might even action some of the outcomes of those meetings that are related specifically to you as the owner of the smartphone that is housing them. So the view then is you will end up not needing to prompt them at all. They will know exactly what they need to do without you telling them that that they must do A or B or C at this or that time on this or that day, and so it goes. Cool. That's obviously a utopian state. No one knows when we will get there. Suffice to say, as things stand, these machines still need us to tell them what they must do, how they must do it, when they must do it, why they must do it, and what are the things that they must do and not do. This is where prompt engineering comes in. Because, simply put, prompt engineering is really a skill that allows you to use large language models for purposes of executing certain tasks and be able to do so expertly as a prompt engineer. Don't get thrown off by the word engineer, which which may make you think that you need to be so technically inclined that you have to study engineering as a qualification before you can use these models. It's not about that, but it's really about how do you use large language models for purposes of them being able to then perform certain tasks much more productively than would be the case if you didn't know how. Let me explain how prompt engineering works based on a generic template, if you like. So, if you are to be skilled at prompt engineering, some of the things that you need to be doing when you're prompting large language models include giving the particular model that you're using. In this case, let's assume you're using ChatGPT, giving it a persona, tell it what role it is playing. You are a teacher, you are a scientist, you are a data analyst, you are the president of a country, you are a marketing strategist, you are a CEO, you are. That's giving it a persona. Secondly, giving it context, because large language models don't understand the physical world. And the best way to make them understand the physical world is by telling them certain things about this world that they should know for them to be able to interpret what we want them to do before they even start executing. So context is important, and it includes things like why I want you to do this. What are the things that you need to know? What are the examples that you need to look into? What are the examples that you should be using to know what not to do for you to be able to execute this particular task much more productively than would have been the case if you didn't know these things? Okay, so that's context. The other element when it comes to prompt engineering has got to do with the guardrails. What are the things that you must and must not do? Whatever those things are. At times it's going to do with what should be the style of writing, why that style of writing, what are the things that you must avoid, and so on and so on. Things that may have to do, as an example, with your brand voice. They go into the guardrails. You may also include examples. And this is where prompting is then called one-shot prompting or two-shot prompting or multiple shot prompting. You then tell the model, here are the examples that you must use, so that when you respond in this particular fashion or not in this fashion, because maybe this is how my competitor would respond and I want you to avoid responding this way. This is where the few shot prompting comes in. So those are the elements that go into prompt engineering, and there are plenty templates that are out there that you can use. Some of these models already have such templates. I know that Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude, which are the three leading large language models anyway, they already have these templates that you can use for different scenarios. So, as things stand, I'm of the view that prompt engineering is still a required skill, and especially when you're using large language models for business purposes, for productivity purposes. Even though we are told that such a skill may have less value down the line, as things stand right now, it has immense value because of the human in the loop, because these models are not at the stage yet where they are operating autonomously of us as humans. Learn it. It's important. You will be able to really take your game to the next level. It doesn't matter how or the reasons for which you are using large language models. Those are the two topics. In summary, the first topic that I started with had to do with domain skills versus generative AI skills, whether it's one or the other. I have made a case for the fact that you're better off with a domain skill and then you overlay the generative AI skill. That your value, insofar as a corporate setting is concerned anyway, will be much higher than somebody who has only generative AI skill but not the domain skill. Because the models, as things stand right now, large language models and generative AI models at large, they still need our hand holding, in inverted commas, as humans for them to be able to generate these content solutions that we're looking for, multimodal content solutions. So you still need to have the domain skill because you're able to then guide the model. You will have heard, and some of you who are using these models will know already, that there is, in some cases, an element of iteration that has to happen before you get the model to give you the kind of response that is close to your expectation. And if you don't have the domain skill, it will be very difficult to guide the model. The second topic has been about prompt engineering, whether that skill is valuable to learn now, given that there's an expectation that these models, when they become smarter, they will be able to know intuitively what we need, and they will get to a stage where they even execute the tasks for us without us even telling them to do so. I've made a case for the fact that we don't know how long it's going to take. Things stand, because these models still need a human in the loop. You need to gain this skill called prompt engineering skill, and I hope I did justice in explaining what prompt engineering is. That's me. They call me Bra Willy Seyama, founder of Initiate and co-founder of Voice. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's the platform that I'm increasingly most active on. Just search for me, Bra Willy Seyama. You should be able to get hold of me. And I do publish articles on an ongoing basis on AI using different scenarios. And I welcome you to check me out on LinkedIn and read up on some of the articles that I've published, and feel free to also engage in the comment sections of the articles that you may choose to read. I'll see you again next week, same time, same place. Cheers up.
You know what time it is? Make some noise! This is the TechTalk. Everything